Welcome to UO Today. Welcome to the new academic year. I'm Paul Peppis, Director of the Oregon Humanities Center, and I'm coming to you virtually this year for our, at least for the fall term of our UO Today interviews. My guest today, as has been the case for the past 6 years, is Michael Schill, President of the University of Oregon. Thanks, Mike, for coming on the show, and I'm especially grateful because this is a year unlike any of the previous years that I have spoken with you.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's interesting. The number of times we say this is a year unlike any other year is, it's almost becoming talismanic.
so my first question is about the first or the most proximate complication in our lives, which are the wildfires that have been burning throughout the West and in Oregon. I just was curious if you wanted to say anything about the university's responses to the situation in the wildfires and all the displaced people.
Yeah, so I mean, it is really just a tragedy, and we have both, for our community as well as communities all up and down the West Coast, and from the beginning, we have, and I know this is affecting everyone, but most particularly the people who have been evacuated, and the people who have lost homes, and the people who have there's some lost lives also in these fires. And so what we've done from the beginning is we have, as you know, a really great incident management group. And so we have connected our incident management team with the county to provide whatever logistical help that we could. We've also reached out to our employees in the evacuation zone, and we have offered them housing in Barnhart, which is one of our residential facilities that has individual bathrooms, because obviously what's complicated is we're in a COVID situation, so we have to be careful. And we've just reached out and tried to mobilize people to work on their behalf. And it's I mean, many of us wish we could do more and in helping them. And we're also responding on campus there's obviously the smoke that has enveloped our area. We're working on trying to air out buildings, improve air quality here. But I know for many people, it just feels like the last straw, right? I mean, first the COVID-19 and all of the complications of that, then obviously George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and just this tremendous wrenching feeling amongst us all over racism, and now we have these forest fires, and I think that I'm hopeful that the state and the community will be able to make a quick recovery from that. And again, my heart and the hearts of all of our folks here go out to anybody who's lost property or loved ones, and we hope that everything gets settled as quickly as possible.
Amen to that. Let's start talking about the various other issues that you pointed to. Let's begin with the COVID and the changes that COVID brought to the University of Oregon. So last spring, the university had to quickly pivot to online and remote learning. Can you say a little bit about how that impacted students and professors from your perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, it was obviously in the spring, it was incredibly challenging. And, I got to tip my hat to our professors and faculty and GEs. I mean, in 1 week, they were able to change their whole method of pedagogy, right? To be able to go online. If you had asked me to, do a Zoom back then, I would have looked at you and with this and been helpless. But people mobilized, and we were able to pull off the spring quarter fairly well. And now, as we're moving into the fall, we're a little more planned. It's going to be different this fall. We have put resources into online education. We have put resources into training. Overall, how did it go? As you know, I called some students. I think it got reported that I called randomly some students. In fact, as I walk down the street, sometimes I see people who said, "You called me last spring," and I said, "Oh." And then I've had meet parents who said it was really nice to speak with you, because if I couldn't get the student, I would call the parent and then see how the student was doing. But I think overall it was good, but it wasn't great and there were some students who had trouble adjusting. We just did a survey through CERU, and we got back some responses. About 96% of the students said they had to overcome some sort of an obstacle. Obstacles would include lack of motivation, but it also could include lack of facilities or internet. About 12% of the students in the study suggested that they didn't adapt very well, and that it was a problem. And so that troubles us. We had doubled the number of folks who dropped out stepped out for hopefully only a quarter last spring. That was a much smaller number than we were anticipating. And but I think overall our students did well, and our advisors are amazing. They reached out, everybody got a phone call, everybody was talked to about their experience. And I think our faculty really did a great job, and I want to thank all of them for what they did.
So the administration decided a few weeks ago that we would be mostly online again this coming term in the fall, with the hope that we would be mostly back in person for winter and spring. Say a little bit about the classes. There's a small percentage, something like 20% of the classes will be taught in person this term. Can you tell us about what those classes are and why they're going to be taught in person?
Sure. So there's some class. So we asked faculty. We sent around, as you know, because you probably received it, a survey asking people whether they wanted to teach in person, and then we also asked what classes they wanted to. And by and large, the classes that we're going to be, about 20% of our classes are going to be in person, and they're disproportionately labs. They are art classes, they're music classes. They're sort of classes that you wouldn't be able to teach, just very hard to teach remotely. As you know, we offered faculty and GEs the choice about whether they would teach in person or teach remotely, and we honored their decisions as to what to do. So those are going to be the classes. We also have this space where we're going to allow a small number of professors who want to teach in person to teach in person this fall, to sort of see how it works in class. There'll be smallish classes, and there'll be social distancing and the like. And we're going to see how that works, so that we can have sort of a pilot for if we're able to be in person in the winter.
So can you say something about the kind of experience first-year students will expect when they move onto campus? And I know that some have already started to move onto campus. I was on campus yesterday and I saw some students moving in. Tell us a little bit about.
So those were probably RAs that you saw, or maybe some early, because our first day of move-in is tomorrow, and we're going to move in for 10 days. Every student is going to be tested as they move in, and then again they'll be tested about 5 days later. So essentially it's going to be staged over a long period of time. So health and safety is going to be very, very important. We're going to continue testing throughout the quarter. But one of the things that we really wanted to make sure of is the first year of college is tremendously important. I don't have to remind you how really it's a transformational period in people's lives, and it also affects the way they see themselves in the university. And what we know is that if you live on campus, you are more likely to graduate from the University of Oregon, and that's even after you control for other factors. So we want this to be a really robust period of time for students. We want them to get a really good experience, to be able to meet people, to be able to interact. We don't want this to be a ghost town where it's just people in their dorms. So we're really working hard with student life, the faculty, other folks, to put together an expanded faculty fellows program. We're going to be doing lectures in the residence halls. We have a ton of residential ARCs and FIGs and our usual freshman experience type arrangements. We're going to do club sports. We are going to, really try to enrich the experience for the students. And so I am hopeful that we'll have a thriving on-campus environment that will be safe in the fall. We're also going to be opening up buildings. So the library will be open, the EMU will be opened, the Tyson Hall will be open, because we know that students aren't going to want to be cooped up in their dorms. And so what they're going to want to do is get out and find, I know I used to always have a special place that I would go study at night in. And what we want is we want people to be able to have use of the university. We're arranging everything socially distanced. We're cleaning like crazy. The dorms will have fewer students, so they'll be less dense. So we're really doing everything that we can to make this a great experience for our incoming students. And then, of course, we're going to have a significant number of students who are going to be living off campus in the upper years.
So tell us about how the university is going to try to keep those kids safe who have decided to live off campus.
So, this is the challenge for every university and you're seeing it on the news, is, big parties or a lack of safety off campus. The first realization that I had to come to was that I have actually, it was never a question, are the students going to be back off campus or not off campus? They were coming anyway. They'd signed leases in the spring, and they want to be here. They would, they want to either not necessarily be in their parents' homes, or they want to be with their friends, or they just, this is where they go to school. This is their home. So they're coming back. How do we keep them safe? And what is the maximum that we can do? And I had to come to grips with the idea that I don't control everything, and we can only do so much, but we are going to do whatever we can do. And partly what we're going to do is we're working with fraternities and social life to make sure that they've reduced the densities in the fraternities and the sororities for people who live there, that they adopt very, very careful standards. And I think we've done that. And I think that it will not be those places where we're going to see the problems. It's really going to be where students live. And I think our best solution is the number one thing is education. And the number one thing is actually peer pressure. So we need our students to be talking amongst themselves with the importance of staying safe, the importance not to have large parties, the importance of wearing masks whenever you're with other folks and you can't socially distance, and even when you can socially distance. So we're going to be doing a lot of campaigns. We're going to be working with ASUO and with the journalism school, and we've already been spending a lot of time on that, social media. And then, there's the flip of that, where we'd like not to go, but we will go if necessary, is conduct proceedings. If you violate state or local rules and you're a student, we're going to have to, that will be violating our student conduct code. The first step is going to be education. We're going to try to explain to you what happened and why you shouldn't be acting in that way. And the second will be, more punitive in nature. But we're hoping we don't have to get there, because we know that it's in everyone's interest that we succeed and that we're all able to be together. That's what we want.
So I don't know if you can answer this question yet, but I'm wondering about the enrollments for the fall and also for the financial forecast for the university. It's probably too early for you to be definitive, but is there anything you can tell us?
Yeah, so this is sort of a long-winded answer, but I'll take you through the parts. The first part is enrollment. And what we weren't sure about is would freshman students or even upper class students, given that we were going to be remote, what would they want to do? Would they want to take a year off and to wait until we're in person? Would they want to, come anyway? And what we're seeing is for our continuing students, the registration numbers are quite strong. So it doesn't appear that for sophomores, for juniors and seniors, we're going to be losing much enrollment. With regard to freshmen, we're going to take a hit. It's pretty clear. We've had a much larger than usual number of people who want to take gap years and come next year. And what we can do is we can learn from schools that have started before us. So we know that University of Colorado at Boulder, which in many ways is a similar type of school to the University of Oregon, they just took a hit on their freshman enrollment. Probably about 12% of their freshman class didn't come. They under-enrolled. And, we're looking at tracking where we are. We think it's going to be in that range, give or take a couple points. So we anticipate that we're going to be under-enrolled in the freshman class. That will have a financial consequence for the university. But it is what we are going to have to experience. I mean, I keep saying over and over again, health and safety are number one. And you hear in the media, you actually hear from some people on campus, all the universities care about is money and finances. Well, we've done two things that demonstrate that is not true. One is we allowed faculty to decide whether they were going to teach in person. They decided by and large, they wanted to go remote. And it's gonna, we do have this consequence. Secondly, as members of the Pac-12, we decided to postpone the football season until such time as we could start safely. And that is also something that's going to cost money. But at the end of the day, I have to look in the mirror and I have to say, am I doing the right thing? And am I putting people at danger? And I'm not going to do that. And so we need to make sure that we have the testing. We need to make sure that we have the protocols in place. And before we come back in person, and before we start football up again, and we're moving towards that, and I think that's going to be, that is a good thing. And even by the time you air this, we may have some announcements. Now, with respect to the other portion of our finances, which is the state, that is this year the state decided. State is going to run a budget deficit. It's obvious, right? We're in a recession. This year, the legislature, when it came back in special session, decided not to protect higher education as well as all education and not cut us. That won't last next year. When we go into the full session, we anticipate that there will be a significant budget cut to us. And we will deal with it at that time. And we are taking steps prudent steps to deal with that. We've negotiated with the union progressive pay reduction plan that will trigger at a certain point. Probably, we don't think in the fall, more likely to be in the spring once we hear about what our state cut is. And then both of those two things get added together. We are trying to save money wherever we can. We've, obviously there's no travel, so we're saving money there. No hiring. We have a hiring freeze with just limited exceptions. We are, engaging. We've had some work share program, and we're trying to find ways to save money. We established a committee jointly appointed by the Senate leadership and us to be looking at more long-range solutions. Because remember, if we triggered the progressive pay reduction plan, that is really only 1 year. And these are permanent. The reduction in enrollment is a 4-year problem, right? Those freshmen, that's a 4-year problem. And in addition, a state cut could be 10 years long, right? The irony of all of this is after the 2009 recession, we had this tremendous cut, and we finally got back in nominal terms to where we were in 2009 this year. And so it takes a long time. And we're going to argue as hard as we can, and we're going to try to involve everybody who's watching this in an argument that it is so short-sighted for the state to cut higher education. And we're hoping at least to make sure that we're not cut disproportionately like we were last time.
So I'd like to switch gears and talk about the university's response to the reckoning on race that's been going on across the country this summer. There was recently an announcement that the Black Studies minor is finally available. I'll be interviewing the current director in a couple of weeks. But we've also had a long-term problem attracting and retaining faculty of color, and in particular, African-American faculty. Do you want to say something about how the university is trying to address those kinds of problems and what other, if there are other initiatives that you're undertaking?
Sure. So this is obviously, race has been an issue, diversity and particularly inclusion has been an issue that we've been working on for a while, ever since actually my first year. We started working on it with our students. We created a Black Cultural Center to facilitate that. Unfortunately, that had to close down with COVID-19. It's going to reopen as soon as the students get back. And you know, we're excited about that, and then any number of things. But one of the things is starting this Black Studies minor. We're really excited. This is something that the students were really very excited about us doing. We've had some fits and starts as we move forward. It's in CAS. We're hoping to grow it. It's going to provide students with a ton of opportunities to learn more about the Black experience in the United States. But that isn't obviously even the tip of the iceberg for us. We have more work to do. We realize we have more work to do. We need to hire more African-American faculty. We need to hire more faculty of color all the way through the university. But importantly, we've actually hired a lot of Black faculty over the past several years. Not enough, but quite a number. We don't retain faculty very well. And so what we need to do is focus on retention of both faculty and staff. We need to build community. We need to build an inclusive environment on campus. And so the provost in the coming weeks is going to announce a set of programs, both with regard to hiring as well as retention, as well as class climate. So there's a number of different priorities that we have in a number of different areas where we're going to be working. I also want to work on student success. As you know, Paul, when I came here, maybe 3 months in, I said student success, timely graduation is my #1 priority. And we made tremendous progress. Everyone made progress, but we still have gaps between the graduation rates of our students of color and our white students. And we need to fix that. We need to work on that. That is going to be one of the themes of this year. So faculty hiring, inclusion, climate, student success. Those are all things we are really going to put our shoulder to whatever you put your shoulder towards to really work very hard to achieve.
So the Pioneer statues were toppled in June as part of this reckoning on racism and race in America. Tell us about your response to that action and if there's a plan for their future display.
So, so I have to say, I value tremendously, and I know our whole campus values peaceful protest and people saying their views. I mean, there's a long tradition in this university. I actually didn't know about that tradition until I came here and had my first protest. But nonetheless, we value that. We don't value people taking, the law into their own hands, if you will, and toppling statues. I mean, we should be able to deal with that in a deliberative way. And we never were able to do that. We were able to do that with Dee Dee Hall, but we were never able, and Dunn Hall, formerly Dunn Hall, now Unthank Hall, we were able to do that. And but we were never really able to talk about the pioneer statues. We were never able to really have a good conversation about our history, particularly with regard to Native Americans in the Pacific Northwest. And I think we're poorer for that. I hope we can get back there. But you know, with regard to the pioneer statues, overall, we're not, as I announced, we're not going to be putting them back where they were. That would only be an invitation to a future vandalism. And we're going to set up a process at some point to figure out what we're going to do with them. I have to say, with COVID-19, with Black Lives Matter, and all of the things we want to do around fighting systemic racism, and with the forest, the wildfires, and are trying to recover from the wildfires, what I do with those two statues is not top of mind right now. They'll be where they are, and they'll still be there when we're ready to get to them.
Hayward Field's renovation is complete. Unfortunately, there can't be any events there. What are the plans? Are there plans to use that incredible facility in the fall sometime in this academic year?
Yes, so there's several things going on. One thing that's going to have to happen is because of all the ash, they're going to have to clean up Hayward Field because, as you know, there's ash everywhere. But but one of the things the cross country team is already using it, so they're already using the outside facilities. The inside facilities are truly amazing, and our track coach is getting ready for a grand reveal for our track teams, and they'll be in cross country, and they'll be able to use those facilities. And then we're going to be thinking about ways in which there's so many people who want to be able to see Hayward Field, see the new Hayward Field, and experience it. And we're going to be thinking about ways to safely do tours in Hayward Field and engage people in this amazing new facility. And then, I don't know if many people know this, but part of Hayward Field is the new human physiology labs. And there's a clinic in there, and that is currently being worked on. It's a great space. It's being outfitted with equipment, and students will be using that facility too. I don't really have a sense about when it's going to be done, but I know that the work is ongoing now. And you know, we're just incredibly grateful to Phil and Penny, who made it possible, Phil and Penny Knight, for Hayward Field to become really the #1 track venue in the world.
So we're coming to the end of our time, and I wanted to ask you the question that I've asked you every time that we've spoken near the end of the interview, which is, have you read anything recently that you would recommend?
So I've read one book, just finished, which is a great book. It's by a former mentor of mine, Bill Bowen, who used to be president of Princeton and president of the Mellon Foundation. And it's called Locus of Power, or Locus of Authority. And it's about shared governance. And I just had to write a paper about shared governance, which is sort of ironic, given I guess not ironic, but maybe appropriate for me. And I will give you the punchline is, I think shared governance is great, and I think it's important, and people who don't like it, I think, are wrong. But in any event, I read that book again, and it's full of wisdom, as everything that Bill Bowen did. And so I recommend that highly to everybody. And then on my coffee table, or actually it's not on my coffee table, it's on my bed, is a new book. Well, it's not a new book, but it's new for me. It's called Inside the Dog, and it's by a woman named Alexandra Hoffman, who's a psychologist at Barnard. And it's trying to understand, what does a dog think? What does a dog smell? What does a dog taste? and it's sort of without anthropomorphizing, or however one pronounces that word, the dog to be just like a human. But it is, and it's particularly relevant for me because, as you know, Paul, you were one of my advisors when I was looking to get a dog. And so I got a new dog. His name is Max. And I anticipate bringing him around campus quite a bit so he gets to meet our students and our faculty and our staff. He's someone who I'm enjoying having.
Well, that's a nice note to end on, Mike. I'm personally looking forward to meeting Max. I've seen photos of him, but I haven't had the pleasure.
He's a
I want to
lover.
thank you again for taking the time to speak with us. And also, I want to say good luck this year. It's going to be a challenge.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing.
We've been, we've been speaking with Michael Schill, president of the University of Oregon. Thanks for watching.